Part 10. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 92. She didn't go to see him, didn't go to the hospital. Was it because she had a new man around her that she no longer needed him? Heart-wrenching, Chi Yuan even wanted to cry at this moment. Maybe my father is still watching him. At this time, he must not lose his temper. He didn't know how he could still laugh and keep calm. Even to cooperate, he asked Su's father with a little surprise, "My sister, she is married." Su's father gave him a quieter gesture, "Don't let your mother hear that, her high blood pressure is getting worse, and she can't stand a little stimulation now." At the end, he sighed and whispered to Chi Yuan and said, "This child doesn't know who your sister was born with, and your sister will be thrown to us after giving birth. She said she wants to marry a foreigner." "What is the foreigner?" "Both are long-haired beasts. My mother and I definitely do agree. Your sister and I left after an argument. You do even call home. Your mother has been hospitalized several times because of this. Just be clear, but don't provoke her in front of her sister." With so many things happening at home, Su's mother was hospitalized several times, but none of these fathers told him. They always told him good news and no grief. Chi Yuan looked at Chi's father, whose hair was gray, and at this moment, he was suddenly very sad. They all regarded him as a loved one, but he always had his own careful thinking. Su's short words made Chi Yuan's heart sway several times like swinging on a swing. His eyes couldn't help falling on the little girl again. Could this child be his? The tight hands were full of sweat. Chi Yuan looked at the children carefully, never for a moment, as now, half of his heart was in the cloud and half of his heart was in hell. This child must be his. She gave birth to his child. The face of an Oriental man she has always liked. She will never marry a foreigner. Immediately after being stunned by these news, Chi Yuan's thoughts slowly returned to the cage. Where is she now? At this moment he could not wait to confirm the child's affairs immediately, and could not wait to immediately turn into a winged bird flying to her and hugging her. The heart seemed to jump to the throat, but was slowly pressed back to the bottom of his heart. He can't get mad, can't. Sister, in which country is she now? That man, Dad, have you met? Father Su froze, and smiled towards Chi Yuan. She hasn't contacted the family for a long time since she left last time. Your mother misses her every day and crying when she thinks of her. This ruthless one doesn't want us or me. Your own child and your brother. Father Su's expression was too sad and sad. Chi Yuan guessed that she must be relieved because she had given birth to his child. He was helpless to cry and laugh at her little daughter-like behavior. However, he never wanted to get her father and mother Su to misunderstand her and blame her, so he helped her out in front of Su's father. Sister, she must have been inspired by the novel, so she closed it. Dad, you do know, sister, sometimes you will forget to eat when you are busy. Do worry, sister, she is always filial. If she sees you so sad, she may be very sad. Father Su hurriedly turned his head to wipe away the tears in his eyes, and nodded again and again, yes, she is the most filial, and definitely doesn't like our sadness. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 93. Father Su's stuttered words had some forewords, but Chi Yuan was a little hesitant to listen. Chi Yuan knew too much about Yan Ji's temperament. The most filial piety, she certainly wouldn't really say anything ruthless to Su and Su. It must be that Su father and mother are old. An old person, like an old child, will care about her, so she has been worried about her until now. He smiled and held his father's shoulders to comfort him. Dad, it's okay, when my health is better, I'll get my sister back. She might want to come back long ago, just wait for me to find her then. Father Su was laughing at Chi Yuan. When he heard these words, he couldn't control his face, and then he expressed his sadness. Fortunately, the child in his arms was struggling to crawl out at this time. He was busy looking down at the child and borrowing his head. Opportunity forced the tears in the eyes back without leaving a trace. In the kitchen, Mother Su has been listening to the outside conversation. She kept wiping her tears, listening to Chi Yuan's eyes and having fun with Xioj. Her eyes turned outside and there was a giggling laughter. She was busy turning on smoking machine, homeopathic, and dry the tears from tears. The little girl looks too much like her, thinking that this is her own child. Chi Yuan really can't put it down, can't wait to hold the little girl in her arms and keep watching. He took the little girl to the kitchen. When Su Mu was cooking, she raised his eyes to see him and the little girl, and smiled and pushed them out of the kitchen. Chi Yuan's eyes were very sharp, and at a glance, it was seen that Su's mother had cried. Su's mother must have just overheard his conversation with Su's father. I walked on the death line. Chi Yuan, who was very confused about his future with the woman, was now full of joy when she saw her daughter and thought of the woman. So even if Su's father Su and his mother were really sad, he thought optimistically. When he got better, he would get the woman back. When the family was together, Su's mother Su would be happy. At that time, he must give a woman a spanking lesson to make Su's father and mother so sad and sad. She is too wayward. Even if there is an awkwardness with him, it can't make Su father and mother sad because of this. But Chi Yuan, in this life, there is no chance to blow her fart. He went to the hospital to make an appraisal. Chi Xioj was indeed his child, and he was even more certain. Yan Ji hid because he couldn't think about the birth of his child. He wanted to find her a surprise to his father Su mother, so he has been secretly checking her tracks. He has a fan who works at the airline and checks her immigration records. She has no record of leaving the country for nearly a year. Her entry record is the second day of his car accident a year ago. This is obviously not the same as what Su father Su said. He was a little stunned in his heart, but didn't think much at that time, thinking he was hiding in a certain city in the country. But the card in her name has no record of spending in any city. He even noticed that none of her cards were rich. No money. Her studio has also been closed, and he repeatedly found several assistants and screenwriters who had previously worked in her studio, and wanted to ask if these people had contacted her within a year. All of them shook their heads and said they knew nothing about her recent situation. The writer who had the closest relationship with her in private before he finally found her, before he asked, she was shaking her head, saying that she knew nothing. This situation is obviously problematic. He lied a little, and the writer suddenly burst into tears, begging him not to ask again. He looked at the woman who was crying in front of him, and suddenly his heart rose with a bad feeling. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 94. When Chi Yuan learned that Yanj was dead, it was already the second anniversary of her death. He found Xioj's birth records in the hospital. I also knew that Yanj was in the same hospital as the one after the car accident. He looked at her medical records in the hospital, did not know what kind of thought it was, and checked his own hospital records. He only knew that at the time, he himself was really dead. And, soon he found another loophole. He knew that he had been transferred later, but the date of discharge and the check-in date of the hospital where he was transferred were completely different. The period was a few days behind. He went to visit the attending doctor who had consulted him. Unexpectedly, the doctor still remembered him, and was surprised when he saw that he was intact like a normal person. Are you an artificial heart now? Chi Yuan shook his head, no. The doctor looked surprised and curious. Your sister, Her idea succeeded? Then your sister, why didn't she come? She was too daring. She invited me to be one of the surgeon doctors. I thought she was really whimsical, too naive. She completely missed you and her life. I didn't expect her idea to come true. Really, it really surprised me. Because of his words, Chi Yuan opened his mouth when he couldn't catch his heart. He resisted the fragmented pain and fear in his heart, calmed down, and asked the doctor, "Why didn't you participate?" "The risk is too great, I don't dare. Although I want to witness that miracle, but I'm scared. In case of failure is 2 lives. Even if the operation is successful, you and her will still experience the risk of rejection. I have a family. There are wives and children in the room, I can't afford to gamble." Although the doctor looked regretful, she immediately relieved her and asked Chi Yuan with a smile, "How is your sister's health now?" "She is going to have a cesarean section just to change your heart." "How is her health now?" "You all look at it, normal people are pretty much the same, she should be pretty good." "I always wanted to know your situation at that time, but unfortunately I was too busy every day, and the affairs of the 2 of you were very confidential, which made me unable to contact you. When will your sister come over once? I especially want to check the physical condition of the 2 of you, and forgive me for speaking like this, I have no malicious intentions, I am just curious about your current physical condition." Chi Yuan listened to him. "The heart is like being smashed by a hammer, smashed into pieces, broken into countless ice residues and pierced into his internal organs. He couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, or even thought. He seemed to fall into a horrible in an instant." Niu Gishan roared in his ear, "She gave him a special cesarean for you. Mr. Chi, what's wrong with you?" Chi Yuanzhang's gaze finally got the focus. He opened his mouth and asked with a dry voice, "Which hospital was the operation at that time? Do we have a hospital in China that dares to take such an operation? Don't dare to pick up the hospital. At first, your sister spent money in private. It looks like she borrowed equipment from the hospital. The doctors also sought it from abroad. Why, your sister didn't tell you?" Chi Yuan shook her head stiffly, "No, she never told me these details." The flesh and bones in the skin seemed to be twisted into pieces. His pain was really uncomfortable at this moment, but the strange thing was that his face was smiling, and he smiled and talked to the doctor, saying goodbye with a smile. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 95. After leaving the private hospital, Chi Yuan smiled and left. His smile is like drawing on the face with a pen, it seems that only water can be used to rinse it. This way has always been that smile. He couldn't take it back at all. He went to the private hospital in the doctor's mouth for the first time. He found another hospital where she was taken after the operation. He was still there and found a record of her hospitalization, which stated that the cause was her postpartum hemorrhage. The end of the hospital record was the death of the patient. The patient died. The 4 words made the smile on his face that could not be erased finally disappeared. He touched the 4 words with his fingers, his eyes were dizzy, but his body remained motionless. He knew it later. Finally understand the details that have been ignored. She closed the studio. All the money in her card was transferred to Sue and Sue's mothers. The houses in her name have also been transferred to Sue's and Sue's. Her card has not been swiped since last year. She has not contacted anyone. She died. She died. How is this possible? How is this possible? He found the doctor who had been in charge of her this time. Unexpectedly, the doctor was an expert in cardiology. The doctor probably didn't expect someone to check Yanj's medical records and raise questions. He found the true medical record of Yanj from his lock safe, explaining, at first, the patient insisted on signing a confidentiality contract for her condition and concealed her parents, so the patient's medical record in the reference room, it was just left to her loved ones at the time. This is a medical record I have kept about her. She was rejection of the artificial heart by her body system after the operation, and her body function could not balance the death of various organs. I have tried my best. She is the most tenacious patient I have ever seen and the most special one. There is also a letter written by her. She said that if you find Mr. Chi, I will give you all these things. Chi Yuan didn't know how he was in that small apartment. Along the way, I remember many past events. He remembered that when she first met her, she was too beautiful. He thought she was the person in charge of the club and thought she must have climbed up by a man. He still remembers that she forgot to put the seasoning on the instant noodles she cooked that night, but she could only eat it with her. She secretly bought a lot of psychology books for adolescents to read, and sometimes learned the way to talk to him. He thought she was a ridiculous woman at the time. This woman, she even regarded him as a child, and he even felt that her heart was a little changed. He remembered that she was a woman who would never mess around, and a woman who would never report a loss. And, there is another day. That day, she was going to sue him to be a strong girl, without even looking at her. When he went out and walked on the road that day, he felt very aggrieved and hated. How could she be so ruthless? At that time, he was walking on the road, thinking more and more sorrowful, and then made countless excuses for himself, pushed all the mistakes to her, thinking of her as a ruthless and heartless woman. He told himself to keep from seeing her, to dry her for a while, and let her take her to him slowly. He couldn't bear to see her, so that night's difference became farewell. He never saw her again. If so, if he would go to the police station, if he was in prison, there would be no car accident at that time, and she would not do it for him. He wished that all could be achieved. Expecting time to go back, he would rather die than her heart. But in reality there is no if. She is dead and will never wait for him to admit wrong. Not to wait for him to take her home. He stood at the door, looking at the empty room, his numb face, and suddenly tears began to rain. He regretted it this time. The regretful bowel is broken. He had known it this way. He would rather be a love and love sister with her all his life. As long as she can be in front of him in peace, as long as she is still, he is willing to be her brother forever. He walked into her bedroom and sat in front of the bed where she had turned her back to smoke. As she was that night, motionless. Outside the window are colorful neon lights, faintly like the laughter of countless people mixed under this night sky. So many people are laughing, only he is crying, crying all the time. Cry like a child. It was dawning. The phone rang loudly. His numb body gradually warmed up in the bell. He picked up the phone and heard the childish soft voice on the other side of the phone. Why are you coming back for a business trip? Zyoj misses you. Don't forget the gift of Zyoj, and Grandpa, Grandma of. The phone sounded like a little angel, so cheerful. His air-dried tears burst out again. Wiping his tears, he stared at the letter she had left for him for a long time before carefully opening it. Inside, just a few words. Little brother. Sorry, I have always regarded you as my brother. It is my incompetence that will make you make such mistakes. I shouldn't blame you for blaming you, because my sister didn't take it seriously. Brother, parents will take care of you. You also take good care of yourself and small songs. I did not teach you well, I hope you can teach her well. Your sister, Suyan. His tears fell again, obscuring her writing. He opened his mouth and said silently, okay. As long as you say, I am willing to do it. I can do anything as long as you like, as long as you are still there. But sister, where are you? After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 96. After Yanj entered the system space of fans, he went to look inside himself for the first time. A bud emerged from the body, but the small bud was almost negligible. This is the reward given by the host in this plane mission. This star reward made her really frustrated. In fact, Yanj was a very patient guy. After all, she was a tree. But now her fate is tied to that mighty one. There is a wolf in front, and another inexplicable beast and tiger looks after her, which makes her think about it. She sensed her natal weapon again, and still couldn't get in touch. Mother, on this day, what kind of awkwardness really is? The chicken was arranging its own feathers, and when Yanj looked utterly ruthless, he was looking for a place to hide, and then he heard Yanj asking, "How about that powerful person?" This time, affectionately, did the last blow let him detect the situation? She even took out her heart. If this person can't detect the situation, it is a mental that can't help the wall. The chicken felt the murderous gnashing in the words of the song. It shook its feathers, slowly walked to the high stool and jumped up to face the song. Although Wang Ba was quite imposing, his voice revealed his guilty conscience. "You really want to listen?" Yanj glanced at it. "Isn't this special nonsense?" The chicken sighed. He is now in the state of secondary blackening. At the end of the previous plane, he was only blackened a little bit. Even the level of blackening was not reached. After this plane was over, it's already a secondary blackened state. Fearing that Yanj does not understand the seriousness of this matter, it added, "Mighty people have a great love without boundaries, and basically there is no such word as blackening. But once blackening, it is almost like going into the magic and going away. The heavens are getting farther and farther, blackened to the 10th level, and even if he is the mighty person of the heavens darling, he will be destroyed by the heavens." The chicken thought that the song would respond to the fierce jumping and scolding, but did not expect that the song was standing there, with a serious face, and did not speak for a long time. "Originally, I wanted to tell the truth about Yanj, and to poke the cleverness of this wooden mind, but now looking at Yanj's expression, the chicken was a little embarrassed. He looked at Yanj's expression and said carefully, "What are you going to do now? Apart from helping him detect the situation, is there any other way to keep my life away from him?" Yanj has now completely lost confidence in this mighty man. A mighty man said that he was blackened, and he must have walked through the back door to climb up the position of this mighty man. Hey, she doesn't want to care about that guy anymore, she just wants to get rid of his restraint. "There is a way," said the cub. "When you are stronger than him, you can unilaterally erase the spirit contract he has set on you." Words of song. Stronger than a mighty one, it would be better for her to continue to help him detect the situation. Although she has only grown for 10 million years, she knows herself. The darling of heaven, is not comparable to the wild monsters like her. Seeing the song not talking, the chicken sighed and comforted the song. "In fact, I reminded you at the beginning that your way is wrong. The next time you meet the mighty one, just do what I say and sleep with him a lifetime, he can definitely break the sleep of him." The words continued to be silent. Although she was silent, the strong aura of the whole body made the chick feel blank and a little cold in the space. It shuddered its feathers, and asked the weak song, "Will you enter the next plane?" You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 97. Yanj asked, "Which plane can you choose on your own?" She wanted to choose a host as powerful as Ming Lan before. The chicken shook his head weakly, "No choice, all random. This spicy chicken system." Yanj's face was so calm that he didn't even want to say, "Go in." As soon as he was in the plane, the cock's voice sounded immediately in Yan Song's mind, "There is good news, there is bad news, which one do you want to hear first?" Casual. The good news is that this time the host is the heroine in this plane. The soul source is very powerful. When you complete the task, the soul source obtained must be very strong. Seeing that the song did not respond, the chicken had to continue to say, "The bad news is that there is no trace of the mighty in this plane. You cannot complete the mighty task together this time." Yan Ji sighed unknowingly when he heard the last words of the chicken. Hey, she doesn't want to see the mighty now, she's afraid she will choke that guy out of control. The mood finally improved, and many chants casually asked the chicken, "The female lead will have a wish." Yes, this female protagonist would rather give birth to the slump of livestock in the next life than to continue to be a female protagonist in this plane. Her wish is actually very simple, that is, to let you live in her plane. Words of song. This female lead is very strange, how can you feel like you are in a blessing? However, Yan Ji didn't think much about it. The body was on a large bed, so she closed her eyes and transferred the chick to her host's memory. After receiving it, Yanj suddenly felt that it was not the heroine of this heroine, but the heroine of this plane. To be precise, the setting of the heroine in this plane is very, very strange. Geeky heroine in a world dominated by the aura of Mary Sue. The hostess is kind, beautiful, pure, and lovely. From small to large, everyone will love to see the hostess, and every man will love her when she sees the hostess. Yes, there is no misunderstanding, that is to fall in love with her. All the male lead turns around the female lead, all the men appearing in the female lead side are all kinds of handsome guys, these handsome guys will be attracted by the female lead without exception, and then fall in love with her. The hostess's father is the richest man in the world, the uncle is the king of a country, the second uncle is the elite of the scientific community, the third uncle is a well-known star, the mother's mother died early, and she has 6 invincible handsome brother. The relatives of the heroine, as long as they are men, are all her skirtsmen. In fact, there are not many of these relatives, because the hostess's skirts have housekeepers, drivers, and classmates, and seniors, teachers, doctors. The hostess is either cracking with this or cracking with that every day. Over time, the hostess can't stand such days. Because the kidney is weak. The feeling of kidney deficiency can only be understood by those with kidney deficiency. And the heroine, she is not an ordinary kidney deficiency. She had a very weak kidney, and she lived in the pain of kidney deficiency every day. But she couldn't refuse those men. Because she is the heroine, the setting in this plane is that as long as she sees those handsome men, she will be attracted to them, and then they will start to talk to each other and talk about each other. Yanj has the illusion that she took a fake task. I wanted to sleep after receiving the host's memory. But now, she was in the illusion of a mess in the wind. How could there be such an incredible plane? Why are there such female and male protagonists in this setting? After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 98. The chicken pacified Yanj. Anyway, this task is simple and the reward is very high, so you calm down when this is the benefit given to you by the fan system. At the end, he added, this task is very suitable for you. You will not have kidney deficiency, and you have always been very sexually interested in such things. Song. What benefits? What makes her very interested in such things? Does she look like an indulgent tree? Really can't spit out good words in the beast's mouth. The host would rather be a livestock than a female host. It can be seen that this so-called welfare is not so easy to get. Although she can be regarded as an iron tree, she is not willing to live such a life. This is different from a queen who keeps laying eggs. The thing she hates most about this tree is ants. Yanj turned over indignantly. The door rang, and a voice sounded at this moment, Miss Seven, can't you sleep? Without waiting for the song to respond, a man walked in silently, walked to the bed a few steps, silently took off his clothes and went to bed, and got into the song's quilt, Miss Seven, I can hold you to sleep, this will allow you to fall asleep. A smooth body moved closer to the words under a soft quilt. This is the host's personal butler, Shi Wen. He started to sleep with the host in his arms, hugged it, and finally slammed. So as long as the host does not have a man in bed at night, it is him who fills the host's emptiness. As soon as Shi Wen approached, Yanj found her body inexplicably soft and somewhat unbearable. Although it is known that when the host's memory is fused, the host's female subject will come into contact with the male host and spring to heart. But at this moment, I really experienced that Yanj still wanted to scold his mother. What is springing in my heart? What's so special is that I am in the process of making a / or forced hair / in an emotional way. Yanj was very angry. She wanted to open her mouth and say get away, but the words turned out to be a shy and soft voice, Shi Wen's voice was smiling, and she also seemed to be proud and petting, as the lady wishes. He reached out and held the words in his arms. What's going on? Yan Song shouted in the system space, shouting, what's going on with my voice? The vocal song in the mission plane cannot return to the system space. At most, it is to have a conversation with the chickens, so although the vocal songs are very powerful, the chickens are not shy. While yelling at melon seeds, he said leisurely to the song, you just want to sleep with that man as soon as you hear that voice. Song. The man in the mouth of the cub was now gently patting Yanj's chest with his hand, just like coaxing a baby to sleep. After the voice of Yan Song was not calm, her body was not calm, and her body was holding the housekeeper's body like a cat. Isn't this irritating the upper body? Yanj feels that his state at this moment is a bit like a drug, it is a state in which he cannot control himself. When housekeeper Wen was still pouring oil on the fire, Wen Run's respectful voice asked in the ear of Yan Ji, Miss Seven, do you need Wen to do something else? This suggestive word. Yanj bit his lip. A pair of fluttering eyes wide open in the darkness, staring fiercely at the ceiling. Hemp eggs, she couldn't believe it and could not make a human body. Miss Seven, what's wrong with you? Don't you like Shi Wen? After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 99. In response, Shi Wen rebuked her guilt and said, Miss Seven, isn't it good for Shi Wen to make you angry? His cheek was on Yan Ji's face, like a pet asking for comfort. Miss Seven, please don't dislike Shi Wen, everything about Shi Wen is yours, what you say is. A magnificent 7-foot man, speaking aggrieved like a 3-year-old schoolboy. Also the elite housekeeper, Ma Dan, I really want to come to a brick and smash this guy's head to see what's inside. Yanj couldn't bear it. Gritting her teeth, she was going to adapt herself to her physical condition to resist it completely. But with eyes narrowed, she could not help but appease the steward, and her arms and legs were involuntarily retracted into the steward's arms. Singing in a breath, like a volcanic magma volcano, roaring inwardly, but calm on the outside. When this calmness was maintained to a certain limit, it was like the lava erupted in a volcano, and finally broke the invisible barrier that suppressed her. When I realized that my body was free to control the words of the song at this moment, he was free to move, and when one turned over and climbed the housekeeper Wen, a brick went down and stunned. Huh? Where's the brick? Yanj looked at the bland brick in his hand. There is always a weird feeling, what went wrong? Although she has just been trying to smash a brick in the housekeeper, it is impossible for a brick to really appear in this environment. In addition to the heroine's Mary Sue aura in this plane, does the host have the skills to achieve it? The chicken's amazing voice interrupted the doubts of Yanj. Wow, the body of this heroine is awesome, and it has helped you complete the incarnation of the natal instrument. What is your instrument in wood? Try something soon. Special power. Song. So this brick is the natal tool she has kept for thousands of years? How can that be? However, it may be that she just thought about smashing the guy in front of her with a brick, so the magical device became a brick in her hand. Well, it must be so. Absolutely. Yanj stared at the brick in his hand, following the chicken's reminder, trying to connect the brick with the sense of God and inspire the various functions of the brick. Can try for a long time. Nor did she incorporate the consciousness into the bricks. Not to mention letting the brick in front of her transform a way of being, and showing off the function in front of her. Yanj asked the cub, "Are you sure this is my natal tool?" She suspected it was the host's brick, and had nothing to do with her. "From the fact that you are wood and bricks, I am sure. It has nothing to do with my soul. If my instinct is, I wouldn't have known it." Yan Song frowned slightly, intending to throw away the bricks in her hands. The bricks in her hand did not wait for her to throw away, the next moment they disappeared. "It should be that I have inspired the potential of the host," Yan Song defined to himself. After all, the host is the heroine, and this plane is so amazing that everything is possible. The chicken did not echo the song. It remained silent. Yan Ji crawled down from the bed silently, watching the butler lying unconscious on the bed, and fell into silence. Will the brick just appear again? In fact, hitting such a man with a brick is quite cool. There are countless such men around the host, and a brick is needed to open the way. The knock sounded at this time. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 100. The housekeeper seemed to lock the door. So although there was the sound of a turn knob, the door was not opened. Yanj stood in place. She wore a very thin night dress. The room was warm and cold, but when she heard the sound of the door, she felt cold. Sure enough, the knock on the door turned into the sound of the key turning. The door was opened at the next moment. Yan Ji sat on the sofa and saw the people coming in by the light in the corridor. Incoming is the host's sixth brother, and also the host's twin brother Susing. The host name is Suyu. Because he and the host are twins, Susing's affection for the host is much stronger and hegemonic than the other brothers. Nearly every man in the host has faced him. As soon as I entered the door, I saw Shi Wen, who was sleeping on the bed, and her lovely sister sitting on the sofa. But he is a housekeeper. What qualifications does he have to lie in your bed and you haven't slept yet? He's better, and sleeps like a pig there. I'll let my parents leave him tomorrow. This sentence is not just Suzialiu's thoughts, but the host's brothers have said it, but it's not possible. The housekeeper Shi Wen's family has been servants in the Su family for every generation. This time, the family's Shi Wen chose the host. The housekeeper was brilliant, but staying in the Su family or Chu Cai, it was not something he could quit. Song of Song sat there silent. She was delighted that Suziali threw Shi Wen out of the door. However, when Suzialiu took a few steps to the bedside, he suddenly stood still. He turned his head and stared at the Song with some indignation and grievance. Do you like this guy? What's so good about him? His family is a servant family. Although the servant family, the Shi family is now a big family, and it is still the one on the rich list. Without waiting for the words to be spoken, Suzialiu had red eyes and said, Little Seven, why don't you speak? Are you angry at what I said? No, no, no. Not angry at all, just throw people out. Yanj pursed her lips. She felt that she couldn't open her mouth and couldn't move. As soon as she moved a mouth, she couldn't help but ran towards the road set by the heroine, Mary Sue. Zioki. What's wrong with you? Suzialiu failed to pull the man on the bed as Yanj thought, but walked to Yanj a few steps to hug Yanj and glared at the man on the bed, gritted his teeth, then he looked at the words with great concern. You tell me, is he bullying you? You tell me, I broke him up. Hemp eggs, with this questioning effort also shattered people. If you have the ability, go for it. The man who hates ruthless words is the most hated. Yan Ji glared at Suzialiu touching her, and she fell into Suzialiu's arms as soon as she was soft, her tight mouth trembling with a few snoring sounds trying to break through the cage. So horrible. What about slabs? Little 7, you must tell me no matter what is wronged, I am not only your brother, we are also the closest of each other in this world. Little 7, you must not hide me from you. Don't kiss her forehead if you have the ability to speak well. Ain't it a twin, so ambiguous? Yanj felt that he was just about to move, it was a bit intolerable. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 101. Suzialiu didn't know it at all, and his lips moved toward Yanj's lips, and he murmured, Xiao Qi, I am so sad to see you like this. Heartache. If you want to sleep, you can talk about sleep, and there are so many words that are affectionate, even if the song has a feeling, it doesn't feel instantly. Of course, she is a very polite tree, and she will never touch such things as mess. The intolerable speech song finally reached the edge of the outbreak, and as soon as the brick appeared in his hand, it hit the head of Suzialiu for the first time. A brick didn't stun people, and Suzialiu's eyes stared at the words with infinite affection. Yan Ji continued to make up a brick in his affectionate eyes. The men and women in this plane are actually wonderful. Fortunately, the world is finally quiet. Looking at the time, it was still too early to dawn, and Yan Ji got up, and pulled out the two people lying in the house with his own clothes and clothes. Sleeping on the host's big bed. The eyes just closed, and the knock on the door rang again. Oh, although Yanj locked the door and took the spare key of Suzialiu back to the room, I can't bear the password to force the door to open. The other person knocked on the door and no one answered. He pressed the password a few times, and the door was opened with a click. Little 7? Are you asleep? The voice of the boss of the Su family. The boss of the Su family is an iceberg face no matter who he is facing, but at the host, he will immediately become a full-blown mad girl. He stepped over the body of Suzialiu and the steward at the door, walked into the room a few steps, and softly asked the song on the bed, What's up tonight? Not happy? Who bullied you? Still don't like the housekeeper's bedtime story? Don't be sad, or would you coax you to sleep? The boss of the Su family climbed into bed on his own, lay beside Yan Ji, and stretched out his hands, very fondly rubbed Yan Ji's forehead. Little guy, why not speak today? The word little guy who drowned so much finally lit the firecrackers of the words. Yanj's brick spontaneously appeared in her hand, and she led her hand to the boss of Su family. Fast and accurate, a brick stuns. Yan Ji stared at the brick in his hand a little aggressive. She was extremely sure and certain. Although she had just thought of smashing a brick of Su's boss, she was not so intense that she had to put it into action. She was also extremely sure that it was just this brick that led her hand and smashed it, not that she took the initiative to smash the brick. Does she seem to encounter a fine brick? Chicken Yanj called to the chicken, are there any so-called monsters in this plane? Yanj asked very seriously, and the cub also thought seriously, no, you think too much, the world is a little exaggerated by the male and female, and everything else is normal. Oh Yanj then determined that this piece might become a fine brick, which is the artifact of the host. The night was finally quiet. Yan Song made the boss of the Su family a good night's sleep after getting out of bed, and it was already bright the next day when she was awake. The steward rang the doorbell and asked her with a microphone on the door, Miss 7, have you got up? It's time to wash. Yanj is extremely sure that this is the voice of the housekeeper Shi Wen. To her surprise, the sound now sounded as if it wasn't as greasy as last night, as if she had changed her personality.